Over the next few months, I got to know Emily and Barry very well. They were both orphans, like myself. They didn't have parents. So we started spending a great deal of time together. They asked me, of course, to help them with their thieving, but I refused, saying that I did well enough on my own and didn't really need to steal. I said if they wanted to do it, then I wouldn't really judge them for it. This is a harsh world, after all. So long as they didn't try to steal from me, we'd be fine. They actually asked me about the gadget that I used when I got Emily free of that guy, asking if I could make more of them like it. Well, I told them of course I could. I in fact had more like it already. Multiple different types of devices that did different things. That one I called the Trojan Surprise. It's one that I meant to have activated by the person it was going to be used on. You offer it as a gift, and then when they press the button, they get a nasty surprise. But I had plenty of others. Afterwards, they started bartering with me for them. I would sell them gadgets that would make their work, if you can call it that, easier. And in exchange, they would give me cuts of whatever they took. I was already doing fairly well with food, but after I started dealing with them, I had much more at my disposal, and no longer had to worry about being hungry. Eventually, they even started stealing electronic devices and things of that sort. Once again, they struck a deal with me. I give them the tools that they need in order to pilfer what they want. And they, in exchange, take cuts of gadgets. They'd steal electronics whenever they could and give them to me, along with cuts of the food that they took, which would only help me in my work. We continued on like this, with a loose relationship for, as I said, several months, probably about 4. I was actually in the middle of an exchange with them, in which they were handing me a box of goods in exchange for a few gadgets. And I was looking forward to seeing what was in this box. They always had a somewhat diverse assortment of objects, so there was no telling what they'd pick up and what would actually be useful. When Emily spoke up, "You know, we've been dealing with you for months. Why don't you just come be a part of our group? That way we don't have to just barter with you. We can do a what's yours is ours and what's ours is yours basis." No thanks, I replied. Don't get me wrong, I like you guys and everything. You're definitely good business partners. But stealing really isn't my thing. And if I join up with you, you're no doubt going to ask that I take part in all of your, well, handiwork. Currently, I still have what you might call a safety net. If anybody comes asking to me about the gadgets that you've been using during your little heists, I can always say that I was just paid. They offered me goods in exchange for the goods that I gave them. It was an interaction and I was uninvolved. That I sell my merchandise to whoever is willing to pay for it. But the moment that I join up with you guys, that goes out of the window. They'll start recognizing me, and then it'll be harder to sell my wares to other people. I mean, we can be friends if you want, but I don't plan on going in on any stealing missions with you. Well, if we're going to be friends, Emily replied, then why don't we ever hang out? I mean, you always meet us out here in these designated spots, but you never come hang out with us, and we never come hang out with you. It doesn't really feel like we're friends. It kind of feels like you're keeping us at arm's reach. Well, I hate to agree with her on this, Guy, but Emily's right, Barry replied. Usually friends spend a lot more time together. I mean, even if you're not gonna join us on our heists, that doesn't mean we can't hang out. I mean, we're not stealing all the time. So, are you free anytime soon? Maybe we could You know, hang around, play some games. As I was shuffling my way through the box and looking at what they put in it, trying to sort out what I would do with all of the individual goods, mainly the electronics, I peered up from outside of the box. Well, I guess so. I gotta take this stuff back to my place. If you want, you can come along with. But no stealing, I said, giving a very serious expression to them. Hey, we steal from people who have more than enough. We have no intention on robbing another orphan like us. That would just be terrible, Barry replied. I mean, come on, what do you think, we're monsters? Fine, I suppose you can come along, I said, picking up the box and beginning to walk back towards my place. Emily and Barry followed along, making some casual conversation as we went, mostly with each other, talking about what they wondered my place would look like, before finally beginning to address me. So, Jax, how exactly did you end up an orphan? Barry asked. I know it's kind of a sensitive subject, and there's most likely some tragic backstory. We don't want to make you feel bad, we're just curious. If it's too much for you, you don't have to answer. I continued to walk, carrying my small box of goods, and looked over my shoulder, replying to him. Well, you don't have to worry about offending me, or it being painful somehow. The truth is, I don't really know how I became an orphan. What? Barry replied, cocking his head a bit and scratching it. How do you not know how you became an orphan? Well, it's really pretty simple, I replied. I don't remember anything. In fact, until about a month before I came to this city, I don't remember anything at all. It's a completely blank slate. As far as I am concerned, my entire life began about 5 or 6 months ago. And before that, I've got nothing. Whoa, are you serious? Emily replied. So you don't remember your parents? Where you grew up? Or you weren't raised in like an orphanage or anything like that? Or by foster parents? No, I replied. I've got none of those. I never had any foster parents. And I didn't grow up in an orphanage. At least none that I can remember. As I said, my earliest memories are only from about 6 months ago. Back then, I was being kept as a slave by one of the gangs and forced to fight in these arena matches. What? Barry shouted, with a completely shocked expression on his face. You mean you actually survived being a slave for the outer gangs? They took you to the arena and everything. Wow, that's pretty harsh, man. Really? I replied. I suppose I don't really have any other sort of life to compare it to. It's not as if I have a bunch of happy memories that make that seem extra bad or something. The truth is, I don't know. Yeah, it sucked. But I'm alive and I got out of it, so I suppose there's really nothing to do but move on. Jeez, talk about a shit deal, Emily replied, crossing her arms a bit. To think you actually had to go through a match or so of that. I mean, what must you have been through? How many matches did you even fight? 2? 3? 22, actually. What? Emily shouted. That's not real. There's just no way. You survived 22 matches? Well, 23 if you count the one where a bunch of soldiers busted in and killed everyone, right before I got the axe, so to speak. Before that, yeah, 22 matches. 8 losses, 14 victories. It might have been 15 if the guys who owned me weren't a bunch of greedy drunken bastards. They pit me against 3 adults. I mean, come on, how stupid can you get? Of course the odds were I was going to lose. And they thought they made it better just by giving me some weapons.